Hello children and welcome back to the English class of Standard 7. Children, last time we were seeing the story, The King's Choice. We were seeing the story, The King's And we've seen in the story that the king, who's the king? The king is the lion of the forest. The king of the jungle is the lion, and he wanted a court and he wanted courtiers. So he appointed some courtiers, three of the animals. You remember who they are? They are the fox, the leopard, and the vulture. The fox was the advisor, the leopard the bodyguard, and the vulture the messenger. Now the vulture, the messenger, comes up with one idea. They were doing very well, but what idea does the vulture come up with? The vulture wants the lion to taste camel's meat. And so he tempts the lion and he tells that there is a camel somewhere away, miles away from here. We will go and catch. And we will have a nice good feast with camel's meat. So this is what the vulture brought a message from there. The camel lives in the desert. Now these two, the fox, the advisor, as well as the leopard, the bodyguard, they didn't know where the desert was. But they didn't want to show that to the king that they are so foolish. So they said, okay, we will go, but let the vulture, since it is the vulture's idea, let the vulture lead us and show us the way to the forest. And so we come to page number 11, almost the second last paragraph, where we continue. Page number 11. Early next morning, the lion and his court started off on the camel hunt. So the next morning they went in search of the camel. They reached the edge of the desert easily. Of course, they reached the edge of the desert easily because it was the same environment which they were from. Through the trees, through the shade, they must have found water to drink, so they could reach the edge of the desert easily. But after they left the shelter of the forest, the day became very hot. The sun shone down with fire hot rays. So, as we learned in the previous lesson, I told you what is a desert. And you learned in science what is a desert, in geography also. What is a desert region? So, it is barren land with just sand all over and the hot sun, no water to be found. And that in India we have the desert, the Thar desert in Rajasthan. You must have heard about it, right? So, here till the edge, they were in their own environment, that is the trees, and also it was easy. They reached the edge of the desert. But once they entered the desert, they are not animals who are adapted themselves to the desert. So they started feeling hot and tired easily. It's because the weather itself over there is very hot. And they didn't have the same shelter which they got from the forest, the trees, little water also they must have got. That was not available. High up in the cooler air, the vulture flew. Now you know, again a little bit of science over here. As we go higher and higher, air becomes cooler. We know that, no? Air closer to the earth is hotter than the air above the land, surface of the land. So the surface of the land is always hotter, right? But above in the high up in the sky, in the air up, it is cooler. So the vulture didn't find it so difficult. It was still flying in the cool air, but the poor leopard, the lion, and the fox were getting tired. Hurry along, he called. The camel is not far off. So he said, come fast, because I can see the camel from here. It's not far off. The camel is not far off. But the lion would not hurry anymore. The hot sand had burned his paws. He could go no further. So the hot sand had burned. I told you the camel, why can the camel stay in the desert? Because it has padded feet, which protects the feet of the camel from the hot sand. But here You can't keep your feet on the hot sand. Even on a summer day, you go and be barefoot, bare feet. If you go on the road, you know how hot it is, right? So imagine a desert which is completely like continuously the sun is bright, the days are longer, so the sand is very very hot. So it burned the paws of the lion. So he said, "Stop," he shouted to the others. "Let us go back to the forest. I do not care to try camel meat." So he was so fed up of the heat, he said, "No, I don't want. I better go back to the forest and have whatever animal I get, but I am not going to take this trouble to go and in search of camel meat." The Lion King's advisors were frightened, but these two, the leopard and the fox, they were frightened. The advisors, the forest was far behind them and they did not know how to get the lion back home. They said, if we go ahead, also it is bad. If we go behind, also because we have crossed so much part of the desert, till we get into the forest, it will be hot. It is going to be hot till we get back into the forest. So, this way or that way, if we go ahead, also it is dangerous. If we go backwards, also back to the forest, also it is going to be dangerous. So, they started and the leopard just wanted to run away from there. The leopard thought it is better I run away. The leopard is quick in running, he wanted to run away from there. Whereas the vulture said, "I will wait over here." The vulture wanted to watch and wait and eat the lion later on. So how would that be possible? Ultimately, the lion, vultures have one quality. They do not eat a live animal or anything. They wait for the animal to be dead and they always feed on the carcass of the animal, the dead body of the animal. So, what would have happened to the lion if he would remain in the desert? Soon, because of hunger and thirst, the lion would die. So just look at the vulture. Is he now a loyal messenger? We said loyalty is one very important quality of a messenger. Should be sincere, should be true to the king. Is he true to the king over here now? Look at his eye, what his feelings are, his thoughts. The vulture says what it will do? Will wait and watch over here till the lion dies. And after the lion is dead, will eat the lion. But the clever fox thought of a plan. Off into the desert he ran, saying, "I will bring some help." So the fox thought it is better we go and get the camel or something rather than going back and dying on anyways. Anyway, if I go backwards, we are going to die. But if I go forward and I get the camel, if nothing, we may get something at least to eat, isn't it? So the fox thought the fox has done its part of being a wise advisor and a clever animal. So it went straight into running into the desert. And after running for some time, the fox found the camel. The camel was indeed surprised to see me. The camel was also indeed surprised. And why was the camel surprised? Of course, the camel must have seen such an animal for the first time in the desert. So the camel was surprised. "Hurry up, friend camel," said the fox. "Our king wants you at once." So he called him friend to show that, yeah, I'm not your enemy and I'm not come here to pounce on you and eat you up. I'm your friend and my king wants to see you. So that's why he called the camel friend. Wanted to show that he's come with good intentions and not bad intentions, not with bad thoughts, but with good thoughts, good feelings. So he said, "Hurry up, friend." "Your king?" said the camel. "Who is that?" "I do not know any king. I only know my master for whom I carry goods across the desert." So that is what as I told you, the camel is the ship of the desert. Just like how the ship carries people and goods in the water, the camel carries goods and people in the desert. So he said, "I am only one master, and that is my master for whom I work. Our king, the lion, has killed your master," said the fox. So now this clever fox, this wise fox, tells the camel, "Our king, the lion, has killed your master. Now you are free, and the lion has invited you to live at his court. come along. So he tempts, again he's tempting the camel that your owner, your master is dead now. Our king has already killed. The lion is a ferocious animal, has killed your master, and now you're free. And our king has promised to take care of you. So come with me. The camel followed the fox. When the fox and the camel reached the lion's camp, the vulture and the leopard were surprised. Even the lion looked pleased in spite of his burned paws. So they were all happy, but with different feelings. So now what the leopard and the vulture, why do you think they must have been surprised? They say, come on, what we had come for, a good meal of camel's meat, we are going to get it. So let's do that now. Now the king will say, come on, let's eat. So once we have eaten something, we may get the energy also to walk back. That could have been the thoughts going on in the mind of the leopard and the vulture. But was it the same in the mind of the fox? Let's see. The camel was presented to the king. He agreed to serve the lion in return for a home at his court. Get on the camel's back, your majesty, said the fox. We will return home. So seeing the idea that fox had, the fox thought that let's make use of the camel. Only the camel can walk in the desert and we will not burn our paws. Only the camel. So he fools the camel by saying that my king, the lion, will take care of you if you serve my king. And tells the king, come on, jump on its back and the camel will take us back to the forest. Such a good idea that is, isn't it? So this is a good advisor. He has advised properly over here at least. Till here, you see the fox has been a good advisor. But the leopard and the vulture, do you think they have done their part? The leopard had feelings of just running away, leaving the lion alone, the king alone. And the vulture had thoughts of eating the lion once it is dead with hunger and thirst and hunger. If it dies, the vulture would eat the lion. So these were the thoughts of the vulture, that is the messenger, and the bodyguard. The bodyguard just wanted to leave the king and run away. But the fox here has played its part by bringing and saved the king. So this is how the fox saved the king. The lion at once jumped onto the camel's back. His courtiers, the fox and the leopard, jumped up behind him. So both of them also jumped up behind him. And with the vulture flying ahead as a guide, they set off on the long journey back to the forest. So the fox has played a good role over here of saving all their lives and taking the camel back. But do you think the intentions of the fox were good where the camel was concerned? If was the fox thinking of, okay, now once I go back over there and the camel takes us back, we will treat the camel as a friend? Do you think fox, they are known for one more nature, fox, the cunning fox. You know that? We always call, whenever we talk about the nature of a fox, we call the fox cunning. Though the fox was wise, had a very clever idea, but here again, let us see where the fox was thinking about the people. As I told you, one quality of the advisor should be whatever decisions should not be selfish, should be for all the people of the kingdom. So let us see whether the fox was really good and thought about the kingdom. When the travelers reached the forest, they were all tired and hungry. The fox, the leopard, and vulture looked at the camel. Then they looked at each other and smiled hungry smiles. So you see, from this line itself, you come to know that the fox had not brought the camel over here just to treat the camel as a friend. The fox had tricked the camel, because the fox had this plan of eating the camel once they reached the forest safely. And so they all looked at each other with hungry smiles. Now we will pounce and we will eat. They had brought the camel for the king's dinner. Now it was time for the feast. So they thought, we have now with a good trick brought the camel from the desert to the forest just to have a nice and lovely feast, a party. The Lion King knew what his courtiers were thinking. He called a camel to him. But the king, let us see that the king was just. I told you the quality of a king. The king should always think about the people, and whatever decisions the king takes, the king should always keep in mind all the good of the people. So that is what, let us see that the king at least thought about the people, okay? Because he has to see that every need of his subjects, of the kingdom, the people in the kingdom are fulfilled. Let us see and be just, right? So, and here the king came to know, yeah, these three of them have an intention, have thought that they are going to kill the camel and have a feast. So he called in the friend camel. Friend camel, he said, I have to thank you for saving my life. You are welcome to live at my court as long as you like. I promise you my protection. So you see, we see that the lion was not as selfish as the other three. The lion wanted to protect the camel and pay back because the camel was the one who saved his life. If the camel would not have been there, anyways the lion would have died, the leopard would have maybe, possibly before reaching the forest died, and the fox of course would have also died, except the vulture. The vulture would have had a nice feast of the lion, the fox and the leopard. Right? But, so the lion thought, no, I should not do such a thing. He said, I'm going to protect you. So the same promise that the lion had made, given the three courtiers, they came to know the intention of the king. And they came to know that now they can't touch the camel anywhere. They have to let the camel live and will not get that feast which they were waiting for. The lion's courtiers were shocked, very surprised. Had they not risked their lives so that he could try camel meat? And the king wanted to let the camel live. So they thought that this is not fair, they thought. We've also risked our lives. It was not the camel, but we risked our lives and helped the lion get the camel to the forest so that it could save his own life as well as enjoy the camel meat. And here, look at the king. What is the king doing? So they thought that it was very unfair, not just at all. So the courtiers were not pleased with his decision. Yet they could do nothing. Yet they could not do anything. Why? Because the lion was a king. So how could they go against the king? We read last time that they never opposed the king. They never went against the king. So that is what happened over here. Now the lion's paws was so badly burned that he could not go hunting. You remember in the desert what happened? The paws of the lion had burned. So he could not go hunting. But that did not keep him from growing very hungry indeed. Okay? Fox, leopard, vulture, he shouted. He said, no, they are going to get the food for them. Don't you see that I am ill and hungry? Go and get me some food. So he knew that though he could not go, the lion could not go for hunting, he knew that there are these three, the fox, the leopard and the vulture, who would somehow get some food. The courtiers had to obey the king. So out they went. But they did not go far. They sat down in a safe place and discussed what they could do. So again, they were so interested in having that camel meat that they wanted to find some way out of it, that how can we eat the camel and taste the meat of camel. That was all that was going on in their mind. So they went ahead, but they didn't go in search of food. They went and they sat together and thought of taking a meeting to discuss. I know, said the fox after a while. We shall make the camel ask to be eaten. So the fox, as usual, very intelligent, very clever, thinks of one idea and says, why not do something? Why not make the camel only tell that, come, my lord, my king, eat me. So we will do something that the camel will go and tell the lion, eat me. He told the others of his plan, and so he told, let's do this. They all agreed, so back they went to the king. So this what was their plan. They all agreed to go back to the king. First, the vulture stepped forward. Your Majesty, he said, bowing low, we have found more food, but we cannot let your Majesty suffer. I am a poor creature, eat me. So, seeing the idea, first the vulture goes and tells, Your Majesty, you can eat me. Then the fox pushed the vulture aside. I have more meat on me, he cried. Eat me, Your Majesty. So the fox said, again the fox pushed the vulture and said, no, you eat me because I am more fleshy and meaty. You can eat me. Vulture is a tiny bird, but I am big. Then now the leopard rushed forward, and now what happened? The leopard also went forward. I am not much good, he cried, but I could make a meal for the king. So he says, even I can make meal for the king. The camel was standing and listening to all this. The camel listened to all these offers. He must do as much, he thought. So the camel thought, and their idea was working now. The camel thought, I should also go and offer myself to the king as food. Your Majesty, he said, I too am willing to give my life for you. Please eat me instead of these old friends of yours who will be more useful than I am. So the camel says, I am good for the desert, not for the forest. So eat me. Why are you leaving me? This was what the fox, the leopard, and the vulture were waiting for. They prepared to jump at the camel, but the lion stopped them. This was exactly what they were waiting for. This was their plan. And they were waiting that now the lion and they will all jump on the camel together. But the lion stopped them. You are all good and loyal subjects, he said. My heart is touched by your offers. My heart is touched. I'm really feeling that you're so good. Like I'm really becoming so emotional now, looking at your loyalty. I accept them all. I shall eat you in the order in which you offered yourselves. And said, okay, fine, you're offering me. I will eat you in the order that you offered. First the vulture, then the fox, then the leopard. The vulture, the fox, and the leopard were shocked. Away flew the vulture. Away ran the fox and the leopard. They were never seen in the forest again. They got scared and they ran away. They were just trying to get the camel's meat. They were not actually giving, they were just acting. And so, the moment the king came to know their plan, yeah, these people, they are trying to trick the camel, wait and watch what will I do. And so the king announced, okay, come one by one. First the vulture, then the fox, then the leopard. But all three ran away. The lion loved to see them go. Then he turned to the camel and said, You have been loyal and good. You shall be my friend as long as we are alive. The camel was happy and grateful. The lion thought to himself, to be kind, king is good, but to be kind is better. So we get the moral over here. These folk tales always give us a moral, and the moral of this story is to be king is good, but to be kind is better. Think about it and write in what way do you think the lion was just? Do you think the lion was just? Do you think letting those three run away and taking care of the camel was right? Write your points and we will think about it. Thank you, children.